Good afternoon, everyone. It's Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024 at 1600 hours. And this is the Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop Meeting. City Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Rostick,
Present.
Vice Mayor Brooks. Here. Commissioner Taglerini. Commissioner Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner McGeehan.
Here.
All
Right.
are present except for Commissioner Taglerini.
All right,
And
thank
Mayor,
you.
Commissioner Taglerini I forwarded an email due to his medical that he would not attend this meeting, but hopefully he'll be here at the 6 PM meeting.
All right,
Thank you.
well, there's no one in the audience public comment wise, so I guess we can move to item 4.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our second budget workshop for our fiscal year 2025 budget. And of course, at any time, please, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask or any comment as well. We are here to provide the information that is in the agenda packet, but certainly we can answer any other questions on anything related to, well, it could even be this year's budget or certainly for next year. But the purpose of this workshop is to focus on the capital budget and a little bit of what has occurred in the past. You have a 10-year history, what we're looking at for next year, and then the 5 subsequent fiscal years thereafter, just to give a snapshot of what that looks like and as part of the entire financial planning part of our budget. And again, certainly if you have any questions or any answers, please feel free to chime in. And city staff is here in the back, pretty much the departments that have had or have capital projects, as well as Mr. Laughlin, our finance and city treasurer, finance director firm. So I'll turn it over to Andrew to go over the information.
Great. Thanks, Robin. So as Robin mentioned, the plan here is we're going to talk capital. And so what I want to do, we'll just go through the agenda. So the first item in the agenda is just to give a look at a 10-year capital outlay expenditure history, just so you can get a look and feel of over the last 10 years, what have we spent? And you can just kind of, see from the trend, we've had some bigger spend years and some lower spend years, which makes sense just depending on the nature and magnitude of the projects in that any particular fiscal year. But obviously it can vary quite a bit from year to year. And then item 2 is just the capital projects budget overview. We'll just kind of look at that page. I just kind of condensed it all on one page. And then item 3 is where we'll go in more in the detail and the description of each project. And I think what I'd like to do there is we can just go through each one, and we can have the relevant department head come up, address questions on each of those items as we go through, like building services, parking, sanitation, et cetera. And that'll give you all a chance to address each project, ask questions. And of course, we can come back, remove, refine, edit, add, and then take that to the next budget workshop for June. And that's where I have an item 4 and for preparation. So I'll take those notes, anything that we want to get amended, updated, added or removed, that'll be reflected in the materials for the next June workshop. And at first I thought a bit aggressive, but I'm going to try to push for it, is to have a complete budget for that June workshop. So have an estimate of revenues, operating expenses, personnel, and then of course the updated capital to give you kind of a rough outline of a complete budget. So that way you'll have a little better understanding of, okay, here's what we're talking about spending from a capital standpoint, but where are we on revenues forecasted for FY25, to enable that, what does our funding look like to make that happen? So I want to give you more of a complete picture as we're working through now. I'm working with the departments on their operating expense requests, going through our roster for personnel, and then forecasting revenue. So we're going through that process as we speak currently. Want to kind of get that refined and completed in the next couple of weeks, and then assemble that more complete package with multiple schedules, department detail, et cetera, for the June workshop. And I think that'll help also with decision-making on if we're deciding to add more projects or cut or what have you. So that's going to be the plan for the June workshop. Questions on any of the agenda items? Sounds good. We'll roll right into,
I have a question.
hit me.
Just to, from memory, 2020 and 2021 were kind of big years. 2019, that whole area there, is that due to the Crystal Island roadway project? Kind of stretched over maybe 3 years?
Yeah, that's when we issued the debt. So that's what I'm going to assume was the big driver for that. And I can pull up those audited financial statements and see the actual capital activity, so I can confirm that, but that's my understanding.
Just generally speaking, because we have, as you get further along in, we have Area 9 and Area 4 coming up, which are big numbers. Did we get financial grant? Did we get any kind of grants on that, matching grants? Do you know? Or that was
For which areas? For-
Crystal Island.
Oh,
when
for
we
Crystal,
redid
I
all
don't
the-
think so, right? But we have going forward since then. For future ones, but not for Crystal Drive.
So that,
Is that what you're
for
asking?
Area 9 and Area 4, we have grants coming.
We've received from the state appropriations. Which are the areas that? Okay, so 3 and 6, we have we'll confirm.
3 and 6, okay, 6 is 4 million. Okay, I'm just looking at these $7 million items that are coming up, and I want to try to get ahead of it. That's the whole point of the questioning. If we can, and I think it goes to, I don't see it on here about hiring a grant writer. I thought we were going to put that in the,
We can,
next
that's to
workshop.
discuss, yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's not a capital item, but
Yeah,
we can
we
address
can
that
add-
when we go through operating in the next budget.
okay, I just wanted to get the thought process out there. Thank
Grant
you.
writer, got it. So just looking at historical capital outlay, I just provided a 10-year history, just so you all can see, obviously very project driven. More recently, much less activity in 2024, 23, and 2022. A little bit more now of an uptick in 24 year to date. We did have a large budget, capital budget for 2024. That was about 21 million that we budgeted. The 2.2 million is just what we've spent through, I believe, early May when I ran this. 2023 budget was about 12 million. 2022 budget was about 5.7 million. So again, depending on what we budget and then projects getting put on hold, there can be a pretty wide gap between actual expenditures, resource availability, supply chain issues, status of projects changing. A lot of things can go into that with regard to budget versus actual variances on capital related items. But at least that just gives you a little bit of picture of what the city's been spending in that range over the last 10 years. The next page, going into the next agenda item, I mentioned our budgeted capital expenditures in 2024 was 21,262,500. So what we have now here in FY25 is comparable. That's 20,075,500. As we can see, a lot of that is dominated by a few projects. You can see in this page what some of the larger items are. But that's ultimately the total that we're looking at, and we have that broken out by fund and then project name.
The top of the page should say FY 2025.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's 24,
Correct.
correct?
Should say 2025.
Preparation year, FY
Yeah,
24.
we're in fiscal 20. That's on page 6 and page 7.
Yep,
Those are for fiscal year 2025, next year.
yep. Apologies for the header mistake there. So yeah, this is for next year, 2025. So then Now, going into the next agenda item, this is the more the detail behind it that shows the account number we're hitting, account name, project title, and more on the project description. And I try to expand it, landscape it, and create page breaks, so hopefully you can see, because I know it's a lot of columns to try to put in. So this is the multi-year plan. Ultimately, what we're gonna budget that you're gonna approve is the adopted budget for the next fiscal year, 2025, but we wanted to show a 5-year plan for anything that we have at top of mind for a future fiscal year as well. So with that said, maybe we can just kind of go fund and department by fund and department. And maybe we can start at the top and just say, hey, any questions on, for example, Archibald, anything you want to discuss? And if we're all good, we can just go down the list. If that works for you all. So right now we've got for the Archibald Park Fund, $3,525,000 for next year. We had the beach growing renourishment project that's taking up a lot of that. That was budgeted in 24, so this is basically a carryover for the work that we're now anticipating to do for FY 2025.
So in 24, it's about a little more than half that we will look to spend in the current year, and the remaining for next year, approximately 1.5.
Yep.
And similar with the restrooms. Megan, I think the total budget for the restrooms is,
About 1.5 total, and we're hoping to be under construction this year, and it'll roll into 25.
so the majority will be paid in fiscal 25 likely. Parking lot next year, that'll be,
What is replace number 109? What is 109?
It's the John Deere Gator that you see downstairs.
Gotcha.
yeah, we have the project title, then the project description that kind of covers. So just going down the list, as Andrew was stating, that we replaced the 2009 dump truck in fiscal 26. The only one for next year funded out of the Archibald Fund is that the 2016 John Deere Gator at the 25,000.
And there are questions on Archibald?
And just so that the revenue for Archibald, just to refresh, I think the majority comes from parking fund, parking revenue,
That's the primary revenue.
90,
source,
how many, I forget how many spaces at Archibald Park, I should have them memorized, but anyway, generate close to $500,000 just in parking revenue. And then, so again, the majority of that fund just comes from, I mean, our visitors are paying for that, not a general fund expenditure.
Okay, anything on building fund? We got 4 items planned for the building fund.
I don't have anything about the expense part, but I didn't think roofs were allowed over boat lifts in Madeira Beach.
For our boat lift,
Yeah. I'm not against it. I'm just thought it was against the code.
My understanding is they're not allowed in residential areas.
but commercial.
Right.
Hmm. Something to look into.
Similar to like the Holton property, how they have one. I mean, I don't know when that was built, but
Yeah, I mean, the Holton property, that was like a whole structure over top the water though.
right.
It's
And I think,
huge.
I think the code says accessory structures on docks, or not accessory structures, but no structure shall be built on a residential dock. And it doesn't mention commercial at all.
That's why we don't see them in residential areas. But nothing doesn't, yeah, recalling nothing specific to commercial, but I mean, we can review that and
Yeah.
come back.
Holden, do you have time to take a look now while we go through things? That way we can clear it up right now and take that off the table. Additional building department vehicle parking. Have we run out of parking?
Sorry, we were on the building fund.
Yeah, we're on
Yeah,
building
yeah,
fund, right
third
underneath the
line.
metal roof for
Third
boat
line.
lift.
Oh, Bill, I'm sorry, just
That's
the,
okay.
that's for that's a vehicle for the building department.
This is the.
Or the, I'm sorry, the parking
lot
space, the
project.
parking lot to park the building department vehicles that we're putting out here in front in the grassy area over here toward Rex Place. So we're gonna park all the building vehicles there to open up the spaces over here. Just to separate out our fleet from the regular parking lot here.
Okay. And then reconfigure the building department permit desk. Is there something wrong with what we have? Do we know?
I think we're gonna redesign, the idea is to redesign it once the satellite office starts taking off. And we've gone paperless, so we've got a lot of cabinets and storage and things down there that we don't use, and we wanna hopefully add some windows to add some life down there, so to speak.
Make it more
Pretty
inviting
hard.
when people come in.
Right, right.
Nice.
And again, the revenue for the building fund just come out of building
Fun.
permit fees.
And I-
Again, no general fund dollars for the building fund.
And that code is section 14-164 is that I was referencing. For
What
the,
did it say
structure.
real quick?
Residential zone, business, no structure shall be built on any groin, jetty. Let's see, sorry. Or adjoining jetty or seawall in any business or commercial zone within the city until the plans and specifications therefore shall have been submitted to the city manager as designated representative. But they're strictly not allowed in any residential zone.
Okay.
That's section 14-164.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for looking that up.
Okay, good on building.
Yep.
The next one, so we have general fund with multiple departments. So we just have one for, it's charge of the city manager's office. That's the city hall veranda and stair replacement. That's a tile replacement project. I know it's slippery there, right? Robin, I believe. As in, yeah, it says current tile is not slip resistant and grout coming up on the stairs.
There are also several locations out there where they're popping off of the stairs because they were not installed properly. And if you look along the handrail out here, they're popping. So we're afraid that if we start demoing those tiles, we have no idea what's underneath it. So the idea is just to replace and put something out there. We've had several slip and falls out there, especially down the stairs. So make it a little bit more safe.
Great.
Then the next one is just for Public Works, which is Public Works Administration Department is under the general fund. And so that's a backhoe replacement.
Well, in fiscal 28.
That, yeah, and also not until 28. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 7 items for the fire EMS department, all of which are for this upcoming fiscal year. And then, well, one is your bunker gear replacement and MDTs. Clint, anything to add?
If there's any questions, I can certainly answer them.
So all 7 of those are for the fire. Okay, including,
So right, starting with the air conditioned storage space at $10,000, the painting of the interior exterior of the station for 65,000, kitchen laundry appliances for the 18,000.
right?
The MDTs as was stated, and replacing all the SCBA equipment recommended by the NFPA standards at the
Okay.
310,000.
The AFG grant was applied for in March as well. Those aren't awarded until August, so we won't know until this FY 25 is about to come into play if we were awarded that or not. So we went ahead and added the SCBA replacement, 310,000, but the AFG grant was applied for.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Chief, how many SCBA do we have?
14,
14.
yes.
For the rec center, the fire suppression, that's replacing, adding fire suppression.
That'll be new. It won't be a replacement because when the rec center was built, it's considered an assembly occupancy, and that should have been sprinkled, especially with a daycare inside of there. There's multiple NFPA codes that trigger a sprinkler suppression system required there for whatever reason and again, I was still on the street when this was built, so I didn't have anything to do with that. But going in there and looking at it, and I mentioned it to Jay, and he's like, yeah, we should probably do this.
Yeah.
So, God forbid something happens. That's the very first thing that they're going to ask is where were the sprinklers?
Chief,
Yes.
we wouldn't have inspected our own occupancy. Who would have inspected it and signed off on such an egregious issue?
That would have been the previous administration. I'm not sure who signed off on the plans. We had a lieutenant at the time that was the fire inspector who more than likely would have signed off on the plans. He's no longer employed with the city any longer. And I don't think the previous fire chief would have signed off on the plans with us having an aspect of prevention.
But can we legally sign off on our own construction would be the question.
I'm not sure. We haven't had to really do that since I've been either the fire inspector or the fire chief. I would imagine I would say yes, just as long as it's code compliant and there's no kind of backdoor politics trying to happen. Hey, don't enforce this kind of deal, you know?
Mhm.
And again, I can't speak for a previous administration.
Oh, no, absolutely not. But you have to ask that question. What happened if
Yeah.
we allowed a certificate of occupancy on a commercial building that didn't have the proper fire protection system? I think this needs to be looked into a little bit further.
Yeah. Again, when I was the fire inspector, I would do our fire inspection for the city, and I noticed that, and that's what kind of sparked this conversation. And here we are trying to remedy it.
Well, it needs to be remedied.
That's for sure.
Regardless, it needs to be done, but I would
Yep.
agree with the mayor. What the hell? I mean,
Yeah.
what happened?
Well, how do we go
Yeah,
about
well,
looking
there
into
were- I
this?
mean,
Sorry.
what are we gonna find? Somebody just approved it without including it, but it appears that this project for this building, the fire building and the rec center it appears to have been underfunded. We have a lawsuit right now on the architect and the contractor and the subcontractor, so I can tell you that just several things were missed and not included in the budget. And I think only a couple of employees are here, but they were not in those roles at the time. We can try, but in the end, we still need to get this completed but
Yeah, it
I can
doesn't
just
doesn't
say that it
impact
was
anything we're
missed.
talking about today. We need to get it
No,
done.
not,
Yeah.
not at all. I mean, obviously it needs to get done, but we have to make sure history doesn't repeat itself. And then we have to identify the shortcomings with this.
Well, I think even people tell me that they see me walking through construction sites and in construction sites. That's not gonna happen when I'm here. That's because I'm involved in what's happening and the staff can say, hey, well, we have updates, we go through all the steps, all the processes, so clearly this is, I would say just not paying attention or at all, or we're looking to cut it, well, yeah, let's cut out that part here. That's why a lot of these projects are taking longer because they need to be properly vetted and included and make sure that everything that we legally have to include is included.
And just to add to that, this would be the third fire suppression system that I've been a part of installing or bidding out and getting installed with the city. The storage underneath City Hall over here, when it was built, we were not sure of the initial use. So, the previous fire chief happened to see me taking gasoline to one of our vehicles down there and said, you can't do that. So we now have fire suppression under there. And then when the pier that was built, I don't know, within the last 5-6 years, that was required. And this crew here actually made sure that that was included in that because they caught that after a certain length that it has to be installed. as well.
standpipe.
So I would venture to say that based on, and we do a lot more in the rec center and a lot more in some of these other buildings and rooms than was ever planned when they were built. I would say that the usage of the building has changed and has probably maybe ticked us into that category. If I were to guess, I can't speak for way back when it was built, but I can say that as we add stuff and as we add occupancy and get closer and closer to that fire coded number in the occupancy of the rooms, then that's when he, kind of raised the flag and said, hey, we need to take a look at this. So give you guys an idea.
Thank you, Jay.
So besides that, the other rec item is the placement of a field maintenance vehicle rake leveler for next fiscal year budget. And then the last one on general fund is for your department, that's Board of Commissioners, is the various chamber upgrades, to the AV equipment. So then after that, we go to the local option sales tax fund. So this is your discretionary surtax money at play here, which some statutory restrictions on how it can be spent, namely for government facilities, buildings, public safety vehicles. And so capital in nature on those types of items is what's allowable. And so that's where we structure our projects to stay in compliance with those statutory requirements. So we've got the Public Works and Building Services facility. So that's going to be, you can see in the account string, the first 3 digits is the fund number. So 103 is your local option sales tax fund. And the next 4 digits is your department number. So 3,000 is your Public Works. So this is the Public Works and Building Services facility that's split 1 million Public Works, 500,000 for building services. Then we've got 3 items, first of which is not until 2029, and the next 2, deputy chief vehicle, and then replacement of MB 100 vehicle for the next fiscal year. And that's for fire, EMS. And then the next 4 are for recreation. All in 25 and 26. Basketball court enclosure, concession stand, shade awnings, dugout replacement, passenger van replacement, and a recreation truck. Questions on that, or Jay, any additional comments? No. And then the last one in the local option sales tax fund is, this is Department 8,000 is John's Pass Village. And so that's under Megan Wepfer's purview. And so that is milling and resurfacing of the Village Boulevard, Boardwalk Place, and the surface parking lot for this upcoming fiscal year. Don't recall if that was budgeted in 24 and just rolled in 25,
think-
or maybe that, no, new.
It's new. And this one will, depending on the timing for the parking garage and when we get to the parking fund where we've included a budget for a parking garage, that this is somewhat related because the surface lot and possibly part of Village Boulevard will be part of, should we proceed with a parking garage in that general area? Well, in that area, the surface lot plus private property around it, plus city property to the northeast. So this number will likely change or be again part of the parking fund.
Right, I'm thinking that won't likely get pushed out until at least a decision's made on what's gonna happen with the parking garage.
Probably till 26, but we just to be safe leave it, but likely it'll be in 26. So it could be moved to that. Well, actually, we do need to start with Village. Megan, if you want to add.
So the reason why this is in 25 is because we're working in conjunction with Pinellas County Utilities to replace their water sewer reclaimed that's in the village. So anytime we do any type of road project, I've been working with the county to do them at the same time so that they don't come in and cut up our brand new roads. So with that being said, though, we could let the county come in and do what they needed to do, and then we could come back in and mill and resurface when we do the parking garage. So this could move.
Perfect. Thank you, Megan.
Next up is Marina Fund. 2 items there, seawall replacement and an additional fuel dispenser.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. With Krabby, we look good at 30,000.
There it is. Well, I'm waiting to get the quote back on Friday, but it looks like it's gonna be more than that.
Okay,
Looking closer to probably, I asked him the ballpark and he said anywhere from 70 to 100.
really?
Yeah, I don't know why. I gotta look at what he's,
I thought we were in the 35 range.
well, that was for the cost of the 2 pumps. So I was like, how much could it be? I think what they're thinking is, since they're thinking of doing it raw like it is, but the seawall will be getting redone. So plan to do it when all that's out and exposed, because they do have to run wires for the compliance equipment and for power down that trench that's gonna be in the seawall. So I think possibly they're thinking they gotta dig that, do that kind of operation. I gotta look at the quote when they finally get it to
All
me
right,
to see.
we're a little ahead of ourselves. Now on the seawall, we're getting a grant for part of that, aren't we?
It's an appropriation that has not been vetoed yet. So it's still,
As we're
In the
waiting on the
budget.
governor to approve?
yes.
Okay,
On the fuel pump, we're gonna get multiple quotes on that and compare.
Oh, that'll most likely
That'll
have
be
to
in-
go out to an
It'll go out to
RFP.
bid.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was trying to get an initial quote to decide what to budget for it. And just off the top of my head, because it was kind of fresh, I said, okay, it cost for the 2 brand new pumps 6 years ago, or longer than that, about 7 years ago. It was, around 34, 30. So I thought, okay, well, I was wrong. It's a little bit north of that. But like I said, I got to see what the quote all entails as far as
right.
if they're pulling electrical and that's 25,000 of it, I'd be like, oh, wait a minute, it's gonna be trenched and dug already. We just need to do things in a timely manner while we have things tore up.
Right, I
So-
know copper's expensive, but it's not that expensive to
Yeah.
lay it in a ditch.
I get it, yeah,
Thanks, Krabby.
welcome.
All right, next item is the parking fund. And 2 capital items there. One are Park Smart smart sensors. And the second is a parking garage.
So we will have kind of probably the first of several discussions as to the proposed location for the garage in attempting to determine what a cost might be. It's the parking garages are typically priced out at take X number of spaces and multiply by per space. The latest estimates are 30 to 35,000 per space. So 200 space garage, you're looking at 6 million, 300, 9 million, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to determine what that will be, but likely the construction would not begin, if it were to be likely, anywhere from a year to probably 14 or 15 months from now. And that's after obviously determining how the funding for the garage goes. By that time, we will likely have, I mean, I don't know, estimating probably about $3 million in the parking fund itself available for this project. So we will, it depends on the number of spaces, but we're trying to just produce a number that seems reasonable. If we have a 500 space garage, you're looking at 15 million, but spread over a couple of years, because it's not going to be completed obviously in 1 year. It'll begin one fiscal year and conclude in the subsequent year. So just trying to include this to have some sort of numbers in our budget going forward. But it will definitely change over time, but just to present and begin to look at what the funding will be. But again, it will come out from the parking fund, whether whatever, if it's a line of credit, we issue bonds, which is typically what you do to finance a garage. We will need to hire outside, counsel to firm to do that and obviously go through that lengthy process. If we proceed with the location in the village, that will require a public-private partnership agreement that will involve obviously legal participation to determine what those agreements will look like, because it will not only be the actual construction, the ownership, the future usage, et cetera. And then if there's any usage 5 or 6 years down the road that will not occur until then. For example, if the roof has a different usage, but we anticipate that and that becomes part of the project. So gets a little bit more complicated, but we're trying to at least provide an idea of what the funding will be, or could be.
I mean, right now, we don't have a location to determine how many parking spaces.
Well, again, it's just an estimate based on the acreage of the site. And we're probably looking at 500 parking spaces. But again, that depends on, we're not the only owners of property in that area, or we could be if it's a smaller square footage or acreage, then you have fewer spaces. But those are the discussions to work with the other two property owners, which we believe, I mean, I've had several with them, but we're going to have more, obviously. But it looks like the proposed site would be everything that I've mentioned, that entire triangular area in the village. But that needs to be obviously finalized, and until an agreement is signed by all parties, then right now we're simply, discussing what can happen.
So this exercise is just to keep it as a line item.
Just-
to
yes.
keep us.
I think to give an idea on a starting point, and the starting point is likely this amount. And again, by the time the construction begins, I mean, there'll be a few $1 million, but there a few $1 million in the fund balance. But keep in mind, we likely will have some expenditures prior to that for both the financing as well as the negotiating the terms of a parking garage.
Good.
So just to, again, yeah, as you stated, it's a good way to kind of a line item, a placeholder but it's likely going to be more than, I mean, again, depending on the number of spaces, et cetera, but we're just kind of estimating at this point what that might be. Just to give you an idea, our surface lot, I believe, is a total of 100. So half of John's Pass Village, or the area where the garage could potentially go, currently has just under 90 I'm sorry, not 90, 52 on the surface lot, and I believe 45 on the street. So about 100 spaces that are currently there. So just to give you an idea, if you kind of envision the surface lot, but that's only one level. And so likely the structure will be at least 2 for parking, likely 3 to include the roof. And then the other component, and as we've had 2 of the walking tours of the village, to kind of attempt to visualize what it might look like. And the meetings that we had with the Johns Pass Village for the zoning of the new 6 character districts, this is in the traditional village area where the height restriction is 34 feet with the exception of 44 feet for a parking garage that would likely have the 4 levels. Retail on the ground floor and then likely 3 with an open top, the 4th level that again could have a different usage several years down the road.
So the city owns a parking lot across the street on the beach side.
Yes, on the west side of Gulf Boulevard at 130th Avenue.
How many spaces are on that lot? How
That
large
lot
is it?
has 76.
So originally, that was the original location that we talked about
Yes.
doing a parking garage there.
Yes. And again, it's, as I've discussed with each of
Yeah.
you, that can still be a location, not really the preferred location, not what I think I would recommend doing, and certainly just asking hundreds, I'm probably up to 600 or 700 visitors out at the village and not so many on the sand side, but realistically, you need to have one in the village. It would be much more beneficial than on the west side of Gulf Boulevard. You don't truly know until you build it, but I don't feel so good as if you build it, they will come type on the west side of Gulf Boulevard, but
So when we start talking about doing this, we'll have meetings, public meetings.
will be-
To get input
Yep,
from the public
absolutely.
and how they feel about that.
so what we're discussing now is what will, a little bit will show maps, will show locations at the June workshop, just to give both locations what the possibilities are, really the very first public discussion on, here's a parking garage that the city has planned for several years. Here are the locations, I'm gonna tell you that my preferred location's in the village. I don't get to make that decision, but that's my preferred location, and so that'll be an opportunity for the first time for input, but we will have more and specific public meetings to get public input on, anything from the number of stories, the type of retail, any type of designs, any type of architecture. And it's gonna be very, very open to get as much input. So we just give everyone an opportunity to tell us. I'm sure we'll get some people, no, I don't want a parking garage in there whatsoever. I don't want any more visitors or if I do, it'd be better if they didn't drive here. Can we look at alternative forms of transportation to get people here? Well, one of them that I've mentioned is it could be air transportation, but that's after, at this point, after a garage or similar multimodal transportation facility is built to allow for potential air transport into the future.
Thank you.
So then the other item in parking fund is the smart sensor that'll provide sensors that will allow visitors and residents alike to go online and view what our open spaces in the various parking areas are. We have a capital project line item for that.
So I have a question on that. I did have the pleasure of riding with Jamal, so I understand the pains of writing a ticket and how much labor goes into having someone going car to car, getting out, walking over, looking the license plate up. Will this system eliminate the need for additional staff? Is there an offset in the amount of employees you need if you have this? Are you able to reallocate an employee to another department? Or would we keep the same amount of employees and purchase this software?
In the enforcement, and I can have Jamal add, but really this is essentially more for the public in the ease of finding an available space.
So it won't assist us in
Well-
knowing who's there and whether or not they've paid?
I know Jamal. if
We
you can
will
add-
we will be able to collect better, more accurate data on that. Right now, we essentially can see by payment when someone parks, but not when they technically leave. So this will allow us to have a better calculation on how many people, how long an individual will stay in a spot. And then when that spot is available, it's basically in real time. And it will allow access for the public to visualize it and basically have more of a comfort. But the way our parking lots are set up, it's first in, first out. So it's constantly, the spaces are constantly being filled. So it's accurate data, but again, the upfront cost, and then it's just basically a comfort for guests, especially in busier times. So
So they have, if not this one, something similar to this down in Paso Grill.
indeed, yes. Now, the last time I checked with them, the sensor system was working quite well. There's some better technology out there as far as camera usage. So cameras can actually track subsections, like sections of the parking lots, and then it's multi-use. You can record audio, all that. So it might be a better option versus the sensors, just due to the hardware cost. And
So, yeah, the Paso Grill part of St. Pete Beach does have that.
Mhm.
I think were they getting?
They
rid of
are,
it?
yeah, they're
going to
not.
remove it. I
Mhm.
don't know all the
Well,
details.
that's why I brought it up,
Well, so,
because
yeah, it-
they move, the sensors sit there on the ground, but you can, literally, they can be moved and which is why I asked, doesn't seem to me like it would be a good
Right,
system.
so we're exploring different technology, and there is, other technology that's coming out. The way this would eliminate a parking enforcement is if cameras or license plate readers were installed, so you can install them in surface lots, or really, they can be installed anywhere. And if the license plate reader through the camera then automatically matches by reading the plate, matches the software when someone pays, and that goes directly into, the handheld device that enforcement uses, then it could tell you, if scan, tell me these 30 spaces, okay, 28 have paid, these two have not. That alleviated the enforcement person from walking or driving down and scanning or entering them. So it could just do it much quicker, a little bit more efficiently, but you're still gonna need a human to be able to physically place the violation.
The
So-
technology will complement, sorry to cut you.
Yeah, it's really a compliment, and so could it, I mean, in the future, it could, if by the speed as to how quickly it can scan plates, because as soon as someone, if a vehicle drives by the LPR and it catches the plate, then the software would be able to tell you whether where that plate ended up, where they parked, and whether they paid or not.
So the software would potentially offer that you would not have to go out and go car to car. You would know which cars didn't pay. You'd know exactly where you were going to write the ticket. So it would decrease the labor to be able to operate the parking
Yeah.
enforcement.
So, and also just as a perspective, for every one ticket we write, we lose 3 or 4. So with this technology, for every, we'll lessen the loss of tickets if it's in violation by probably half. So hopefully.
Thank you.
So next up is sanitation funds. We've got a quiet year next year from a capital perspective on the sanitation fund. Nothing in FY 2025, but Megan put together the multi-year vehicle and equipment replacement plan over the next 4 years subsequent. And so that's what that looks like with replacing those vehicles. And then lastly, on the final page is the stormwater fund. So we've got area 3, 5, and 6 wrapping up. And then area 9 starting, area 7 starting, is the plan for fiscal year 25. And then the bulk of Area 9 planned for fiscal year 26. And the bulk of then, and then Area 4 would start in 26 and finish in 27.
When do we start to look at budgeting, even if it's out a few years, even if it's out a lot of years, for undergrounding the utilities in the residential areas? I thought, was it last year or the year before? And I think it was back when Linda was here, actually. We talked about getting that out in the budget.
Well, as I explained to you earlier, Duke Energy is not very efficient. So I actually had a meeting with them probably a year ago, and I sent them my whole plan for my project area and said, let's combine the projects. This is when I plan to do construction. These days start engineering. I didn't get any response from them. I actually sent a check to them for Area 6 to try to underground Area 6 in conjunction with the roadway project. And then after having the conversations with them, they told me that my timeline was unrealistic for them. Because as we've seen with the Gulf Boulevard project, we started that in 2019. It is 2024 and we are still yet to be under construction. So Duke Energy's timeline of a simple less than a mile is 5 years, if not more. So it is very, 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 very difficult to try to plan a project with them, also with Pinellas County. So I'm trying, but it's almost one of those things where it's a little bit unrealistic. I've asked them to come to a meeting to explain how their process works, because when we started Gulf Boulevard for area, or for phase 1 and phase 2, that looked like probably like a 2-year turnaround time. So we've gone from a 2-year to a 5+ year turnaround. So it's difficult.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with Chiquita, and she was saying that they do it by substation and that they have a multi-year calendar where they do all their major work for each different substation. They might have it out 10, 20 years, I don't know. And I thought our area was coming up.
I will
So-
check in.
Yeah, we will review with them again, because, I mean, this is a conversation that we need to be having probably a couple of times a year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if we have to go to the corporate Duke office and say, hey, well, this is
Need to
what we're
go.
planning to do, we need your,
I agree 100%. Get above whoever you're talking to, find out.
Well, as you
Who's
said,
their
we have a
supervisor.
new rep now, so
Yeah.
maybe that can help push things along.
Yeah,
Um,
invite them to come, yeah.
I have
Meet and greet.
requested, I think, about 6 times. It's been going on for about 6 months. So I'll send another email
Yeah,
and
well-
we'll see what we can do.
we will definitely follow up. And as I said, it just, yeah, we haven't, I can tell you this is the same, when I was up the road decade ago, same scenario, even before Duke purchased Progress Energy, it was similar. And that's a reason why a lot of cities just choose to do it on the, you know, as best as you can. But you still need the utility, Duke Energy, to agree to participate. And that's been a little bit of a challenge.
Right, because I know they budget certain funds for, you know, each of those substations. Now, whether they're going to be replacing poles or we use those funds to help us with our budget with undergrounding, you know, that's a conversation that Chiquita said we could have. So, but I don't know, you know, it's well beyond her. I understand with their engineering group and their supervisors and I bless you for working with them to get it through. But just want to keep bringing it to the top of the pile. Thanks.
And just Megan, so we're back to, I think Commissioner Kerr had mentioned, we received a little over $1 million for Area 3.
Area 3 was $549,400 and Area 6 is 1 million.
And No, this year was the seawalls.
This was the seawalls. I don't think we
and-
did
and the
receive
road
any
project.
infrastructure.
But something I mean, because you can see obviously the cost and impact to the cities into the
Right.
millions, any amount can help, but it's something that we are incorporating in our,
And RJ's been instrumental in.
yes.
In that.
And we do request those every year, but we don't always receive them. And we are back to the grants talk. When I did the engineering RFP or ITB, I can't remember what the title was, I included in that grant writing services. And we actually did contract with Colliers and had them research grants. So I gave them our CIP for the whole city and had them research and see if there were any available grants that would fit into our CIP. And there weren't any currently, but there are some that haven't opened yet. So those are in our eye. We're just waiting for them to have a date.
Okay, so we have a relationship with a grant writing person or company.
We do. Colliers Engineering.
And our undergrounding firm, Megan, is Utility Florida.
Utility Consultants of
Utility
Florida.
Consultants of Florida.
And we will be starting hopefully mid-June. We just received our FDOT grant, or I'm sorry, permit to start.
On Gulf Boulevard.
Correct.
So part of Gulf Boulevard, I mean, I think all of you has been undergrounded, and now we're beginning on
144th
44th,
South.
heading south. At essentially the county park heading
Correct.
south. But again, at least, I mean, we're starting Gulf Boulevard. I think your comment is
Yeah, I
neighborhoods
I want to get it
residential.
in the budget. I don't know what that budget would look like. It would sort of look like the parking garage thing where you just said, okay, we're gonna put a placeholder in here. We have to kick the can. We have to kick the can, but at least it brings it up for a conversation every time we go through the budget. And as things are updated, that's just my personal opinion. And if there's, we get, depending on where our conversation goes with grant writing, I just think that it's something that we need to pursue as best we can. But thank you.
Any other questions on any of the projects we went over or anything that you'd like to add or discuss outside of what we've covered?
Personally, I would just like to try to figure out how we can extend the life of our sanitation trucks a little longer. The 5-year replacement and the 8-year replacement, it just seems like we could get a little, is it because they're out in the weather and we lived in a coastal environment? Is it the use? Is it the heavy use or is it?
It's the heavy use. The commercial trucks need to be replaced every
they're-
7 to 9 years. It just depends. Again, it's a placeholder. When we're budgeting that prior year, we can always push them out another year, but
Okay,
typically on those, I mean, they get a lot of use, and once they're past that life, then you spend a lot more money on maintenance
sure. Well,
and
my
repairs.
red flag went up when I read the first one, 2023 Peterbilt claw truck.
Yeah, that's not correct. That's a 2013, not a 2023.
Ah,
Yeah, I just saw that.
the rest of the story.
Yeah, it's a 23rd.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
Okay, so like I mentioned, for the June meeting, we'll try to put a more comprehensive workshop document together for you that'll include all other components of the budget. So revenues, operating expenses, personnel expenses. You already have capital here, and we'll put it all together so you can see what the full picture looks like. And then we can tweak that. Then we've got the July and August available to further tweak to, get it to where it needs to be. And then, September should just be the more, perfunctory plan of approving in public meetings as needed. No surprises there. Sounds good?
Questions or anything other information?
Real quick, Megan, a quick question for you. I was just noticing area 4, it's not designated anything until 2026, correct?
That's correct. That's to start engineering in 2026. So again, with a lot of these road projects, I sat down with Pinellas County Utilities and we worked out a plan based on theirs and also with obviously our road conditions, which your road has gotten significantly worse since all of the construction. But it's to try to replace the utilities at the same time that we do the road projects.
Do you think that there will be any grants available for that also? And that
We will do
fiscal
our
year?
best to request grant funding, but I mean, I can't speak to 2027, and that number could be way different. So
Right.
it just depends on pricing at the time. And I mean, that is a significant area. So
Right, exactly.
And it's both grants and appropriations through the state, because we can apply for grants through a few entities. Road projects are a little more complex, and then certainly through the legislative appropriation, which is where we've received funding. I mean, it's a grant essentially,
Right.
but there are also, potentially grants available from other sources that we're also going to research and
Okay,
I
all
attempt to receive as well.
right. Thank you.
you're welcome.
If no other questions or comment at any time, please feel free to email or when we have meeting, let us know of any other questions related to capital, but then our next workshop will be on June the 26th.
Yep.
And again, at any time, let us know of any other information that you would like or anything else that we can provide, but we will continue working on next year's budget. Thank you all.
All right, any other questions? All right, the time's 5:02 PM. We'll go ahead and adjourn this budget meeting.